Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
I was telling that Vak is a pervasive concept in Vedic philosophy, and everything, whole cosmos is generated out of Vak. Vage Vishwa Bhuvnani Jagye. So many mantras are cited that I have shared. And Vāda is a manifestation of Vak. So Vak is Brahman, Shabda Brahman. And Vāda as a manifestation of Vak, that also Vāda as a manifestation of Vak, that also is equated to Brahman. So Tasmat Brahma Rupata Vādasya. This sutra I shared from my own Sanskrit work, and some people are coming. I request all of you to join. At the time we start. Because today, because of some technical problems, Praveen Pandyaji, who is supposed to admit the latecomers, he is unable to operate. And I was sharing the screen because without that, I'm not a great Pandit to continue without this help. So we were discussing the connotations of Vāda and the terms related to Vāda. I told you about the Brahmodya, which is the oldest institutions, which is one of the oldest institutions related to Vāda, for the practice of Vāda actually. So there were Brahmodyas in Vedic time, and Shatpat Brahmana describes Brahmodya. Other Brahmana texts and Upanishads also describe Brahma Sansad and Brahmodya. So Brahmodyas were held. Brahmodya was an assembly of enlightened ones, Brahmagyanins, and terms related to Brahmodya are Brahmavadin, Brahmavadini, Brahma Sansad. That also we have discussed, and Darya Makad and Indrani Devi, please come on right time from tomorrow. So there are 51 people who have joined so far. And if others are in the waiting, Pandyaji will let me know. Or if it appears on my screen, I will admit. So Vakovakya means is exchange of words. It is also one of the terms under the periphery of Vāda. We can say a form of Vāda. Sometimes it is taken exactly a synonym of Vāda also, and it was a discipline to be learned in Gurukulas. As Shatpat Brahmana says, this citation from Shatpat Brahmana is there, that the Brahmacharis are learning Vakovakya. Going to the next one. We have to finish this lecture, I think, before 8, so that Professor Shukla has some time for his comments. So I will go to the next. So normally the dialogues involving heated discussions and rejoinders are called Vakovakya. And in Yagyavalkya Smriti, Vakovakya is included in the subject. So amongst the disciplines to be studied, Vakovakyam Puranam cha, Nara Shanshishcha Gathika, etc. All these disciplines are learnt in Gurukulas. This is also a very interesting topic of research, and I think Professor Kala Acharya and many other scholars have worked on it. What were the subjects to be taught in ancient Gurukulas in Vedic age? We have already seen that there are 19 disciplines mentioned in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. When Narada approaches Sanat Kumara and says that I have learned this and this, so he mentions 19 disciplines. 4 Vedic Samhitas and Brahma Vidyas and Ekayan, and Vakovakya is also there. So all these disciplines were taught in the Gurukulas. So Vakovakya is treated sometimes synonymous to Brahmodya also. There are references. And the other terms in periphery of Vāda, which are there in the later literature, Saddhi and Vāda are synonymous in Milinda Panho, which is a Pali text. It is a wonderful work of Shastrartha or Vāda. Amongst two great intellectuals, we can say. Milinda, who was actually the Greek king Menander, and this Bhikkhu Naksen. So they have sometimes Vakovakya, sometimes discussions, very profound discussions they have in Milinda Panho. It was, I think, prepared in 2nd century BC. So Saddhi is the term in Pali, then Brahma Sabha is the term used in other texts. Later texts, we can say. Rajshekhara describes the Brahma Sabhas in the courts of kings. Mahanagareshu Kavya Shastra Parikshartham Brahma Sabha Karayet. So the learned scholars and also the poets would join these Brahma Sabhas. And then Brahma Ratha is mentioned by Rajshekhara. So in the Brahma Sabha, there would be the please mute your mics. The scholars would be examined in the Brahma Sabha, and whosoever performs excellently would be carried by the king in Brahma Ratha. So that is the honor of the scholar. And in a later term, I think, which got prevalent in 19th century, Shastrartha. And sometimes in the king's courts, Shastrarthas were held. But so far as I understand, it was with the advent of Dayananda Saraswati that the term Shastrartha became very much prevalent. And Shastrartha, as we understand the term, is somewhat different from the very pervasive term Vāda, as I have explained. So Vāda involves all sorts of discussions and dialogues, and which elevate the human being, which lead to emancipation of our soul, which lead to self-purification also, as we have discussed. And Shastrartha is a debate proper, we can say, intellectual debate, we can say. And there is another term, it became very much, it came in vogue in medieval periods, that is satsanga. And discussions in a congregation of saints, devotees, who are given to a spiritual quest, they were called satsanga. It's a very important concept in the whole Vāda tradition, this satsanga also. If there is time, we will discuss it probably in the 6th lecture. So how our tradition of Vāda differs from the Western tradition. All the great Jnanins, you see, they are poets also. And the word Kavi stands for a Brahmagyani also in Vedas. So Kavyas are also there in the Vāda Sabhas. In the Brahma Sabha, Kavya Goshti is also there. So the Brahma Sabha described by Rajshekhara, he says that in the intervals, there would be recitation of poetry by the poets, because the Vāda is enlivened by poetry. Madhvabi nanava dansham swadate. It works like a snake when you are drinking wine, the poetry. So therefore, Kavya and Shastra would go together in the Brahma Sabhas, he says. There are other terms like Katha. We will discuss the concept of Katha in the 3rd lecture. And Sambhasha is the term used by Charak in Charak Samhita. Charak Samhita is a great text in philosophy, and on the theory of Vāda also. It's a remarkable exposition of the theory of Vāda. And the word Samvada is used in the Mahabharata. We are going to discuss Mahabharata in the third lecture, so I will omit the concept of Samvada. And the concept of Samvada has become very meaningful nowadays. And we will have discussions on Samvada also. That I have told. The Shastrartha, the term Shastrartha came in vogue during 19th and 20th century. Then a systematic theory of Vāda was developed under Nyāya philosophy. And over the past 2 millennia, the theory and practice have grown. And there is an enormous literature on Vāda, on the theory and practice of Vāda in Sanskrit. So far as I understand, I can claim that Sanskrit is the only language where so many texts on the theory of Vāda have been written. बहस को लेकर के बहस पर किसी भाषा में डिस्कोर्स अगर किया गया तो वो संस्कृत है. ग्रीक में, लैटिन में कोई एक आध किताब मिलती है, और फारसी में बलराम शुक्ल जी बताएंगे, एक आध दो पुस्तकें हैं, उनको भी मैं नाम बाद में बताऊंगा. लेकिन इतना अधिक एक सिस्टमेटिक डिस्कशन बात की थ्योरी और प्रैक्टिस को लेकर के संस्कृत भाषा में ही हुआ, और अनेक ग्रंथ हैं. दिलीप कुमार जी कल से समय पर पधारिएगा, इसमें थोड़ा कुछ कष्ट है बाद में एडमिट करने में, और माइक म्यूट कर लीजिएगा. So so there are so many texts related to theory and practice of Vāda, and great philosophers have written texts on the theory and practice of Vāda, like Dharmakirti, Vādaään Nyāya he has written, and Mahamahopadhyaya Shankar Mishra in 15th century, a great scholar and Nyāyik of Mithila, he also writes a text on the theory and practice of Vāda. Mahamahopadhyaya Rajeshwar Shastri Dravid in 20th century, he also write a text on the theory of Vāda, theory and practice of Vāda, although he names the text as Shastrartha Vichara Paddhati. So right from the BC era, we can say, up to 20th century, there is a tradition of writing text on theory and practice of Vāda. Vāda granthas are there, text describing a particular Vādas, debates, dialogues, and discussions, they are also there. So we will discuss them, the types of texts related to Vāda, but this is our tradition. And I say that this is India's great contribution to world culture, that we have given a Vāda Shastra to world. No other culture in other parts of the world have this rich tradition of Vāda, intellectual discussions, dialogues, and debates, and a systematic theory built up on Vāda and Samvada. So this is our Shastra. We should have cultivated it. Unfortunately, it lies almost neglected. So coming to some of the other basic things about Vāda, all the Shastras are structured through Vāda. And how a Shastra is structured, how a Shastra is created. A Shastra is normally written in the style of debate, discussion and dialogue, and an imaginary interlocutor raising objections, demanding clarifications, and asking questions is always there in the mind of the Shastrakara. A debate within the mind of the author constantly goes on. Whosoever is writing a text on theory or any scientific text, he is debating with himself. So there is a form of Vāda. There are debates inside. There are debates. There are silent debates going on. It's very so many forms of debate Vāda are there. So a Shastrakara might be debating with himself, or might be having dialogues within. So this is the structure of Vāda. The structure of Vāda is there inherent in a Shastra, and a section of Shastra is termed as Adhikarana or Adhikara, and there are categories under an Adhikarana. So these 5 are the categories which an adhikarana would comprise. Vishay with Murdhanya Shakar, and I think Vishay with the Talavya Shakar. So Vishayo Vishayash Chaiva Purupakshas Tathottaram Nirnayash Cheti Panchangam Shastredi Karanam Smritam. So Vishay is theme, Sanshay or Vishay, doubt, Purupaksha, the prima facie view, if it is the proper English translation. Although there are doubts about these terms, their translations in English, or the English equivalents of these terms in of these terms, and then Uttar Paksha, the reply or rejoinder, and Nirnaya, that is conclusion. So the 5 components form a Adhikarana and Adhikarana, and Shastra has Adhikaranas, and Purupaksha and Uttar Paksha, they enrich each other. So Rakesh Pandey, who is here, he has written a very good article on the concept of Purupaksha and how it is relevant for us today. So in our tradition of Vāda, Purupaksha is very significant, and many times several systems which are lost to us, they are reconstituted out of the Purupaksha, which is there in the Uttar Paksha text. It also happens. So, but Purupaksha and Uttar Paksha, they go together. Without Purupaksha, there is no Uttar Paksha. And without Uttar Paksha, there is no Purupaksha. So, they enrich each other. And this very beautiful sentence occurs in Jalpa Kalpa Lata, a text written by a Jain Muni. I would refer to it. It is one of the texts on the theory and practice of debate, Jalpa. So, Paksha Yugalo Jalo Jalpa Keli Maralo Vimalam Avgahate Manasam Sumanasam. The Jalpa Keli Marala, the Rajahans of Jalpa, sporting in the Manas or Mansarovar of the Sumanas of the enlightened Sardayas. It has 2 wings of Purupaksha and Uttar Paksha. So this Jalpa Keli Maral, the Vāda, you can say, the Vāda Rajahans has these 2 wings, Purupaksha and Uttar Paksha. So without one wing, he cannot fly. The Vāda would not have his flight. Then some basic things are there. They are normally known to most of you. And maybe there are some research scholars from Sahitya departments. For them, they may be like a revision if they have read them in their MA courses. So in Vāda, you should know how to define a category. Lakshana, what is Lakshana? How to define a category and what is definition. So the definition of a definition. So Lakshanam tu asadharana dharma vachanam. The uncommon or peculiar property of a category to be defined is called its Lakshana. It is the peculiarity of that category. And a category is defined through its avachedaka. तो मुझसे कुछ गलती हो तो राजा राम शुक्ल जी बता देंगे, ये कुछ न्याय का विषय है, मैं इसमें ज्यादा समझता नहीं, और बहुत बड़े न्यायिक यहाँ उपस्थित हैं. So category is defined through its avachedaka, which may be translated as delimiter, sign, or specifier, which brings out its uncommonality or uniqueness. So avachedaka is the unique delimiter or sign or specifier of a category to be defined. So we define a category through its avachedaka. So avachedaka is the pervade. It should be is. Acha, 2 people have entered the waiting room. You see, it is already 7:40 in India. How they left the meeting. Indrani Ram Prasad had joined and Balram Shuklaji was also there anyway. So, avachedaka, I think it is parved or vyapaka. and the category to be defined is pervaded or vyapya by it. A category can have several qualities, but its avachedaka will be the only one. Sasnadivan pashu gau. A cow is an animal which has sasna or gal kambal. झालर जैसी जो उसके गले में लटकती है, that is cow only has it. So sasnadi matva is its unique quality. और जात्यादिमान, गोत्व जाति मान पशु गौ, as we say. So then Gotva Jati would be the avachhedak, if I understand it correctly. It is not my area, although. And there are blemishes of defining a category. So whenever you are doing a Vāda and defining a category, you should be aware of the blemishes, doshas. So Ativyapti, Abhyapti, and Asambhava, these are very well known concepts. And Ativyapti is over application or wider application. So the definition which applies to other categories other than the category to be defined, then it would be Ativyapti. Avyapti, that is narrow application or narrow definition. Lakshaika desha vyapitvam. It applies to a section of the laksha only, of the category to be defined. So it doesn't apply to the whole category all in all, taken together. It defines to a section of it. So like you say that cow is an animal which is of white color. So all the cows are not of white color. So there will be avyapti. And asambhava is impossibility. So you define a category by characteristics which are impossible. Like you say that a rabbit is an animal which has horns. Shrangavan pashu shashah. Then it will be asambhava. A rabbit won't have horns. So I will omit the examples. Simple things are there. Then there are impediments. These are the impediments when we are doing Vāda, rejecting the doubt summarily. We will come to these categories in Nyāya. So Sanshaya is an important category in Nyāya Shastra or in Vāda Shastra also. The doubt should be raised first. If you don't have any doubts, how can you have discussion? So in Descartes' philosophy also, I am told that doubt is very important there. And I cannot doubt that I am doubting. This is the sentence often cited from there. And if you said that this is not the doubt, ऐसी कोई शंका उठती ही नहीं है, summarily you reject the doubt. So you can't pursue a proper dialogue. So you should consider the doubts properly. To carry a Vāda properly, the doubt should be examined thoroughly, and threadbare analysis of doubts or sanshaya should be made. So this is one of the impediments in conducting a proper Vāda. If you reject any doubt summarily without considering it, and becoming aggressive may be an impediment. Loss of patience and perseverance may also be an impediment. Vāda vigna. So these are the Vāda vignas, impediments for carrying out a dialogue, a Vāda. And apathy to challenges. If you are not accepting a challenge from your pratipakshin, and you say that this is not a challenge at all, I don't consider it, it's a small issue for me, that then also you can't pursue Vāda. And fear of defeat, that also. So I will cite as a kind of relief for me and perhaps for you also, this Karika from Vāda Shastram. Parikar shloka from my Vāda Shastram. Vāda bhayat paravrattir nava samvada bhiruta sarva sanshaya vemukhyam name santu kadachana. Vāda bhayat paravratti, turning away from a challenge to debate, and nava samvada bhiruta, shuddering from entering into a fresh dialogue. Sarva sanshaya vemukhyam, and shunning away from all doubts. Let these be never for me. So if you are trying to create a Vāda Shastra for our age, we will have to consider the Vāda Vignas as they consider the Ras Vignas in Kavya Shastra, and Vāda gunas and Vāda doshas, etc. So there is another Parikara shloka. Tiktatam vachasam vade samvade cha tathograta dhairya satatya hanischa name santu kadachana. Bitterness of speech in debate, being aggressive in dialogues, loss of patience and perseverance, let these be never for me. Coming to next, these are the impediments or vignas defined in the Shastras. We will also come to these when we discuss the concept of tarka in Nyāya. I think Jain Bhatta has defined these vignas or doshas in tarka. Anavastha is anantya, chakrita is a vicious circle, ishtapatti is infinite regress, and ubhay pasha rajju. You are caught from both the sides. And anishta prasanga is also there. That is a reduction ad absurdum. Anishtapatti also, whatever pratigya or hypothesis I am proposing, that is lost by me, even by me, then it is be perhaps anishta prasanga or anishtapatti. So now I come to important discussion on the types of text dealing with Vāda. So these are the categories you can put into the text which deal with Vāda. This is perhaps you can say my classification. And the terms, of course, are known in the tradition. Siddhanta Granthas or Vāda Shastra Granthas are there in Sanskrit. Textual literature on the theory of Vāda. Then Vāda Granthas are there, text describing a theory with its Purvapaksha and Uttarpaksha. A particular theory is described in a text. So suppose Vyutpatti Vāda or Pramanya Vāda or any theory. So it's Purvapaksha and Uttarpaksha, both are taken up together. And that would be the Vāda Grantha for that particular theory. And Vivarana Grantha, to me, Vivarana Grantha is a text which describes the actual Vāda happening, that had happened or that is happening. Historically, that may have happened. Like the Shankar Digvijaya Kavya, you see, they are describing the debate, Vāda, great Vāda between Shankar and Mandan Mishra, or Shankar and Sureshwara, and Shankar or Padmanabh Mishra and others. So they are the text. They may be poems or even Shastric texts, but they describe the actual debates or Vadas that have happened. For me, they are Vivarana Granthas. And Shiksha Granthas are manuals for the practice of Vāda. So this is also a very interesting thing about our tradition of Vāda, that our acharyas have written manual texts, manuals for teaching or training their students into the Vāda tradition. So Shiksha Granthas are also there. And then there are Sahitya Granthas, literary texts which are imbued with Vāda. You see, so many examples you can give. Mahim Bhatta's Vyakti Viveka, it's a Vāda on Dhvani theory. And Kavya Prakash Khandanam is there. Deconstruction or refutation of the whole Kavya Prakasha of Mammata, 16th century. In Akbar's regime, some Acharya has written this Kavya Prakash Khandanam. So Sahitya Granthas are also there. In Sahitya Granthas, Tika Granthas may be there, which are taking any literary theory and refuting it or condemning also it, or raising Vāda on it, or any text, any Shastra text would have Vāda inbuilt that way. And Samvada Granthas are there. The text which reflects Samvada, dialogues. It's a very pervasive concept to me. And it's an important concept in our times. And we should try to discuss this concept of Samvada in our tradition and how to practice Samvada in our life. This also we should consider. So in our tradition, in our literary tradition, Sanskrit Vangmaya, there are Samvada Granthas. Mahabharata, for example, has so many Samvadas. And I will come to it. So many texts are there which reflect Samvadas. But these are the 6 categories of the text which deal with the theory, practice, training, etc., of Vāda. And Mahabharata confirms the characteristics of all the 6. Therefore, I thought it better to have a separate lecture on the Mahabharata. How all these texts are there in the Mahabharata, because Mahabharata is a Mahagrantha. So many granthas are, you see, combined, joined in that Mahagrantha, Mahavakya. So all these you can find. Some Mahabharata as a Samvad Grantha, Mahabharata as a Vivran Grantha, Mahabharata as a Shiksha Grantha, etc. Then Vāda Shastra Granthas, so many are there. We will discuss some of them. Nyāya Sutra of Gautama and Vādaṃ Nyāya of Dharma Kirti, Vāda Vidhi by Vasubandhu, Nyāya Parishuddhi of Venkatanatha, and Vādi Vinod, 15th century Shankar Mishra, and Jain Tattva Shloka Vartik by Vidyananda. So many other texts are also there. My work is there on the theory and practice of Vāda in India's intellectual traditions. Those who want to know, have further knowledge about it, they may consult that. Then there are Shiksha Granthas, Nyāya Pariksha or Bodh Siddhi by Udayanacharya. And Abhinav Gupta had written a manual on Vāda Shastra. Unfortunately, that is lost. So much of the literature by Abhinav Gupta has been lost. So Kathamukh Tilakam was a text for the Shiksha of Vāda. Abhinav Gupta wrote. So many other texts are also there as Shiksha Granthas. In Persian, Jalaluddin Davani wrote a text on theory of debate entitled Akhlaq-e Nasiri. Balram Shukla is there. He would be better telling us about the tradition of Vāda, which happened in medieval periods, particularly in Akbar's time, or in Shah Jahan, Jahangir, in their courts, and Sanskrit Pandits are there debating. So then there are texts in Vāda, the Shastras which have Vāda inbuilt in their structure, like Nirukta of Yaska. It's a great text built up in Vāda, you see. How he says Anarthaka Vai Mantra, this is the Purvapaksha Kotsa. Then he gives 12 reasons for its reputation. He gives tarkas after tarka, how this Anarthaka Vai Mantra by Kotsa is wrong. So it's a great text in Vāda, and so many other categories also discussed by Nirukta through Vāda style. Then Arthashastra also, Arthashastra by Kautilya, Praman Vartikam by. So all these great texts you see. Tattvopaprav Singh of Jai Rashi, 7th century, he was a great Nyāyika. It's a Vitanda text, Nurima Yasmin. If you leave after entering once, it will be difficult. Anyway, Nyāya, Kusumanjali, or Ishwar Vāda. So it's a great text on the existence of God, authored by Udayana, the great philosopher of 10th century. So then the other category is literature about Vāda. The text which describe Vādas that actually happened. Like Milind Panho I have described already, and all the biographies of Shankaracharya. Then there is a text Nilkeshi in Tamil, and its English rendering is available from Prakrit Bharati, Jaipur. Very interesting text, you see. Nilkeshi was a lady debater. Maybe she existed 2000 years back, and she had so many debates. She was a great Vāda Mahila, what term we can use for that. So she was a great Vāda philosopher, you can say. And she was debating with all the great philosophers of her time. So those Vādas are described in Nilkeshi. It is a bit mythological account also. Nilkeshi is almost deified. Then she was a Jaina Shamani. But she must have been a great debater. She must have existed sometime. Later on, she was worshipped as a Devi in Tamil tradition. So this text is available. So in other languages also there are such text we can say. Then there's these manuals, Shiksha Granthas, out of them Khandan Khand Khadya by Sri Harsha, one of the greatest philosophers in our tradition. So Harsha says that I'm going to teach how to conduct Vāda here. Of course, it is a Vitanda text. Khandan Khanda Khadya. It demolishes all the systems of philosophy. So they are practicing the method of deconstruction, as perhaps it is termed in post-modern theory. So these great philosophers, so they are deconstructing all the existing philosophies of their times in Khandan Khadya. That is called Vitanda. We will discuss it in the third lecture. But Harsha says that you read my Khandan Khanda Khadya and you will become an expert of Vāda. Shabdartha nirvachana khanda nayanta sarvatra nirvachana bhava makharva garvan dhira yathoktampi kir vadet duktva. Like a parrot, you just cram these lines which I given. You say this, you say this in refutation. So how to demolish a theory? So these are the techniques you should remember. So like a parrot, you cram them, you learn them, and you apply them when you are conducting a Vāda with a Prativadin. So you will win. Digvijay Kotukam Atanudhvam. He is a poet also. So I think it is for the first time that the concept of Digvijay is given in the Vāda, that we can have Digvijay through Vāda. हम दुनिया को विचारों से जीतते हैं. That was our concept, that we are going to conquer the world through our ideology, through our Vāda skills, through our debates, discussions, and dialogues. So we perform a Digvijay. We, the scholars or Brahmavadins, can conquer the world through our ideas. So that tradition, unfortunately, is lost. So the winning the world through ideas. That was what we were doing from 4th, 5th century to 13th, 14th centuries. Many of the countries of Southeast Asia, we won these countries through our Vādas and ideas. So they accepted our theories, our language, our culture, not because they were won by war, but by just learning and listening to us. So this is Digvijay through Vāda, which you can do, but you should learn Vāda, the techniques of Vāda for that. Or for learning those techniques, you should study a manual, maybe with a guru. Then I have already referred to these texts on literary theory, which are constructed in Vāda. I will try to find up many of the great classics in Sanskrit or in any language you can say. They are structured in Vāda. Ramayana, Mahabharata, almost all the works of Kalidasa, except perhaps Ritu Samhara and to certain extent Vikramarvashiyam, all his great works, his dramas, his epics, they are structured in Vāda. There is a Vāda inbuilt. I don't have time. You see, sometimes the commentators discuss it as a Vāda text. Arun Girinath on Raghuvansha, how Kalidasa's Raghuvansha is a Mahavakya. He discusses it. So, great poetry has Vāda inbuilt within. And all the epics like Sampurnanand and Buddha Charita of Ashwagosha, Mritchikatika of Shudraken, all these great epics. Uttanimat is a wonderful epic by Damodar Bhatta. So Vādas happen there between the Ganikas, Kuttanis, and they are debating. And very interesting Vādas are there. Then these epics of Bharvi, Magh, and Sriharsh. So there are implicit and explicit Vādas in these Mahakavyas. There is a Vāda between Draupadi, Bhima, and Yudhishthira in the first 2 cantos of Kiratarjuniyam. But there is a Vāda inbuilt about the value of life, whether it is Moksha Purushartha or whether it is Purushartha Trayi, the tussle between Karma and Jnana. All these Vādas are there in Kalidasa's works or in Bharvi's works, and they are great visionary poets, you see, particularly Bharvi. Bharvi is a great Vāda poet that way. So, okay, मैं अभी खत्म करता हूँ शुक्ल जी, और अब मैं थोड़ा संक्षेप में बताऊंगा. Mudrit Kumudchandra is a drama which runs only through Shastrarthas or Vādas. There are Shastrarthas between Devsuri and Kumudchandra, a Digambar scholar and a Shwetambar scholar. Then Vishwagunadhar Champu is also a very interesting literary text, a wonderful poem, Vishwanath's Champu by Venkatadhwari. So two Gandharvas debate about Bharat Varsha. They are viewing the whole life patterns, philosophy, जीवन शैली, रहन सहन, आचार विचार भारत देश के लोगों के, and they are debating about them. So one of them is condemning and other one is supporting Indian civilization or culture or ethics, etc. So it's a great debate text, but it's a great poetry also. And different types of vadas are there. So I think we will take up in third lecture also these various types of Vada depending on the outcome, the themes, occasion, and purpose of Vada. Various categories we can describe, and there are impromptu debates. Ashu Vada. Suddenly you have to enter into a Vada, like Shankaracharya countered by a Chandala. He was challenged by a Chandala. How you call yourself a Advaitavadin when you are asking me to move away from the way. Do you want to remove Annamaya from Annamaya, etc., etc.? He challenges. So Shankaracharya had to enter with him into a kind of Vada there. Then there is a Vada inside a person. And so many examples you can find. Hanumana is a great scholar in Valmiki Ramayana. And many times he is debating with himself. So very beautiful examples are there. When Hanumana is visiting Sri Lanka and is searching for Sita, he is debating with himself. What shall I do? Shall I retire from life now? And he gives his reasons for retirement, and then he says, no, it is not proper for me to quit this endeavor, etc. So all these Janaka and as described in Mahabharata and Upanishads. So I will take 2 more minutes. What is the significance of Vada, which includes Samvada also in our tradition, the Vedic Nyāya, Gautami Nyāya. Plurality is a mark of our culture, which can be preserved through Vada, including Samvada. Vada would come as a savior of mankind. Vada, because it subsists on diversity, so it would preserve our cultural identity and plurality. Our Bharati Asmita ki pehchan Vaad se ho sakti hai. And Vada does not happen in singularity. It always prerequisites the other, mostly promotes the presence of many others. So Vada is required for revitalizing any knowledge system, an outlet for release of violence, pacifying the anger, which leads to disorder, etc., etc. A country where debates do not happen is a place without gestation. Authoritarian regimes do not allow debates to happen. The lack of Vada leaves a society in a morbid state, and Vada envisages a culture of pluralism and democratic values. Okay, we are free from ideological stagnations if Vada and Samvada is there. Okay. And in the concept of Nyāya, Vada leads to moksha. I will discuss these things again, perhaps in third lecture. Udayana says that I am taking up this Vada on Ishvara because it is through Vada, it is Ishwar Charcha and it is Manana Vyapadesha. It will lead to my emancipation. Therefore, I am doing the Vada. So Vada for self-purification, for self-emancipation. And there is a glorious tradition of Vada in India. Venues of Vada describe the royal courts. Asanga has a discussion on Vada, a Buddhist philosopher. He has described so many venues of Vada. Royal courts are described where Vadas used to happen. And I think I will now omit these. Some ethics of Vada are also there. They were to be covered under these basic concepts. But they are obvious, so you can know. And the concept of Prashnika is very important. So Prashnikas are described in Vada text, particularly in the manuals for Vada. Who should be the Prashnikas or juries when Vada happens, and who are the Sadasyas? So proper descriptions of Prashnikas are there in Dharmashastra text also and in Vada text, manual text also. So I think I would stop here, and I invite for 5 minutes, we can have discussion, 5 to 10 minutes. If there are any queries, I will go to chat box. I had requested the participants to raise their questions. And where is the chat box? But recording stop sharing chat. I don't see any question here. प्रवीण जी, आप देख पा रहे हैं कोई प्रश्न है?
सर प्रश्न नहीं है चैट बॉक्स.
Then it's all right. It's the first day and maybe some people have entered late. There was some disturbance. From next day, please try to come on time. And if there is some technological problem, we can't help. So I would now request Professor Radhavallabh Shukla to give his remarks. Radhavallabh Shukla ji is one of the most renowned scholars from Kashi. He is a well-known Nyāyika. He has been the Vice Chancellor of Sampurnanand Sanskrit University, and he is Professor in Kashi Hindu Vishwavidyalaya, and a great scholar amongst us. Radhavallabh Shukla, please.
Namaste. I am audible?
Yes.
Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Sarvebhyaha Namaskaraha. I'm sure I will be permitted to make my remarks in the language of my command, either Sanskrit or Hindi, whatever you permit me.
Yes, please. Any language.
मैं सर्वप्रथम आदरणीय त्रिपाठी जी का आभार व्यक्त करना चाहता हूं एक अत्यंत वैदुष्यपूर्ण और सूचना पूर्ण वक्तव्य के लिए। आपने वाद को ब्रह्मोद्या से जोड़ा और जब मैं आपको सुन रहा था मुझे अपने परम पूज्य गुरुदेव महामहोपाध्याय राजेश्वर शास्त्री जी का वाक्य स्मरण हो रहा था, वीतराग कथावादः तत्फलम तत्व निर्णयः। जो वीतराग व्यक्ति है उसके द्वारा किया गया संवाद, उसके द्वारा किया गया कथा ही वाद है, उसका फल तत्व निर्णय है और तत्व निर्णय का फल मोक्ष होता है। इसलिए ब्रह्मोद्या को मोक्ष विद्या या ब्रह्म सदस्य से भी जोड़कर जो आपने चर्चा की है वो निश्चित रूप से शास्त्रीय चर्चा के रूप में हम देख सकते हैं। मैं कुछ बातें वाद शब्द से और उससे संबंधित अन्य शब्दों से जोड़कर देखना चाहता हूं। वाद यह शब्द दो अर्थों में हुआ है हमारे शास्त्रों में, एक कथांग के रूप में और दूसरा सिद्धांत या तत्व रहस्य जो भी आप कह सकते हैं, जिसके आपने कुछ उदाहरण भी दिए थे, शक्तिवाद, व्युत्पत्तिवाद आदि आदि। लेकिन जब हम आज की चर्चा से वाद शब्द को जोड़ते हैं तो निश्चित रूप से मेरे दृष्टि में यह कथांग के रूप में ही वाद शब्द का प्रयोग यहाँ अभीष्ट होगा। तिस्र कथा वादो जल्पो वितंडा चेती, ये जो हम लोग कथा के त्रैविध्य देखते हैं उसके एक भाग वाद के रूप, वाद जो है उसके रूप में हम लोग इस चर्चा को केंद्रित कर सकते हैं। जब हम वाद शब्द का प्रयोग देखते हैं तो इससे जुड़े अनेक शब्द, लगभग 7 शब्द हमारे शास्त्र ग्रंथों में प्रचलित के रूप में पाए जाते हैं। वाद, संवाद, विवाद, प्रवाद, प्रतिवाद, पुरोवाद, अनुवाद। इसमें से जो प्रारंभ के 5 शब्द हैं, पुरोवाद और अनुवाद को छोड़ दिया जाए तो ये सभी किसी न किसी रूप में कथांग के रूप में आते हैं और इन शब्दों का प्राय आज लौकिक भाषा में भी उपयोग हो रहा है, परंतु कुछ कुछ विभिन्न अर्थों में उसका आज प्रयोग है। विवाद, विवाद आज ये शब्द आज कलह के रूप में प्रयुक्त होता है, जबकि हमारे शास्त्रों में उसे विप्रतिपत्ति के रूप में, जिसका आपने उल्लेख किया था, संशय, बिना संशय के हमारी चर्चा नहीं हो सकती है, उस रूप में विवाद शब्द का प्रयोग हमारे शास्त्रों में मिलता है। और उसके बिना चर्चा का आरंभ नहीं होता है, विचार का आरंभ नहीं होता है। विप्रतिपत्ते है विचारांगत्वम, यह हमारा सिद्धांत है। विचार का अंग है। विचार आरंभ करने के पूर्व में यह विप्रतिपत्ति अर्थात संशय जनक वाक्य, विप्रतिपत्ति का अर्थ होता है संशयोपस्थापक वाक्य का प्रस्तुत होना, और यह मध्यस्थ के द्वारा प्रस्तुत किया जाता है। दूसरी तरह संवाद शब्द का प्रयोग है। संवाद शब्द सामान्यतः आजकल हम लोग डायलॉग के रूप में प्रयोग करते हैं, और संस्कृत शास्त्रों में भी इसे कई जगह डायलॉग के रूप में भी यह आया हुआ है, जैसे कृष्णार्जुन संवाद है, और भी स्थानों पर आया है। लेकिन यह संवाद शब्द का अधिक प्रयोग और प्राचीन ग्रंथों में प्रयोग यह ऐकमत्य के रूप में किया जाता है। श्रुति संवाद, श्रुति से सपोर्ट मिल रहा है, इट इज द अनुमानम इज बीइंग सपोर्टेड बाय श्रुति। अनुमानम श्रुति संवादी अनुमानम, श्रुति अनुमान को श्रुति का संवाद मिल रहा है, दिस अनुमानम इज बीइंग सपोर्टेड बाय श्रुति। कहीं कहीं सफलता के रूप में भी संवाद का प्रयोग किया जाता है, जैसे संवादी प्रवृत्ति और विसंवादी प्रवृत्ति। शुक्ति में रजत को देख करके जो प्रवृत्ति होती है वो विसंवादी प्रवृत्ति होती है, असफल प्रवृत्ति होती है, और रजत में रजत की जो प्रवृत्ति होती है वो संवादी प्रवृत्ति होती है। चौथा शब्द है प्रवाद। प्रवाद शब्द का प्रयोग भी हमारे शास्त्रों में सिद्धांत के रूप में किया उपलब्ध होता है। इति प्राचाम प्रवादः अपि संगच्छते इत्यादि प्रयोग मिलता है। प्राचाम प्रवादः हमारे प्राचीन लोगों का अभिमत, प्राचीन लोगों का कथन भी इससे गतार्थ होता है। प्रतिवाद यह शब्द भी विचारांग है, लेकिन इसका प्रयोग कम उपलब्ध होता है, जबकि प्रतिवचन के रूप में इसका प्रयोग हम लोग को दिखाई पड़ता है। प्रतिवचन ममुष्मयी, आप खंडन खंड का उल्लेख कर रहे थे, उसी में यह उल्लेख है। प्रतिवचन ममुष्मयी वक्तु को नाम विद्वान नहीं ऋतम अनुरोधि ग्राम सिंहस्य सिंह इत्यादि प्रयोग मिलते हैं। और पूर्ववाद और अनुवाद तो परस्पर सापेक्ष हैं, जिनका कथा से मतलब नहीं है। अनुवाद तभी संभव है जब पूर्ववाद हमारे सामने हो। एक नई बात हमें मिली वाचस्पति मिश्र द्वितीय के द्वारा रचित न्याय तत्वालोक में। संभवतः मेरी दृष्टि में प्रथम बार इसका यह मुझे मिला है, जिसमें वादाधिकारी का भी उल्लेख किया गया है। कथाधिकारी और वादाधिकारी का उल्लेख किया गया है। कौन कथाधिकारी हो सकता है, कौन वादाधिकारी हो सकता है। वादाधिकारी के रूप में उन्होंने प्रकृतोक्तिकाः, अविप्रलंभकाः, यथाकाल स्फूर्तिकाः, अनाक्षेपकाः, युक्त सिद्ध प्रत्येतारः और बुभुत्सवः, यह इन विशेषणों से युक्त व्यक्ति ही वादाधिकारी हो सकता है। और कथाधिकारी में उन्होंने एक विशेष जोड़ दिया है, तत्व निर्णय विजयादि फलाभिधायिनः, क्योंकि कथा में जल्प और वितंडा भी आता है, और जल्प और वितंडा में तत्व निर्णय के साथ साथ विजय भी एक प्रयोजन के रूप में जुट जाता है। मेरी अपनी यह मान्यता है, अपना सोचना है कि जल्प और वितंडा का भी किसी न किसी रूप में मुख्य प्रयोजन तत्व निर्णय ही होता है। वाचस्पति मिश्र ने एक स्थान पर जिज्ञासा उपस्थापित की कि जिस प्रकार से तत्व बुभुत्सा से वाद किया जाता है, उस प्रकार से तत्व बुभुत्सा से वितंडा भी तो की जा सकती है, तो फिर उसे वैतंडिक क्यों कहा जाता है। तो उन्होंने यही एक जवाब दिया था, यही उत्तर दिया था कि अगर वहां तत्व निर्णय इच्छा है, तत्व निर्णय ही परम इच्छा है, तो उस वितंडा को भी हम वाद की ही श्रेणी में रखेंगे। यदि हम परमत खंडन कर रहे हैं तो भी वह वाद के रूप में ही प्रस्तुत किया जा सकता है, जैसा कि मधुसूदन सरस्वती ने भी हेलो, कुछ लोग बोल रहे हैं मेरे ख्याल से, कुछ लोग संवाद कर रहे हैं।
मैं देखता हूँ, आप बोलते जाइए, सुनाई दे रहा है, मैं देखता हूँ कोई।
हाँ, तो जैसा कि आचार्य मधुसूदन सरस्वती ने भी अद्वैत सिद्धि में कहा है कि उपपादनंच स्वपक्ष साधन परपक्ष निराकरणाभ्याम संभवति। यदि अपने बात को हमें कहना है।
अविनाश महोदय, प्लीज म्यूट योर माइक, प्लीज अविनाश महोदय।
यदि हमें स्वपक्ष का साधन करना है, तत्व तक पहुंचना है, तो अगर उसके बीच में कोई विरोधी मत आते हैं, परपक्ष आता है, तो उसका निराकरण करना चाहिए। और अगर उसके निराकरण का उद्देश्य तत्व निर्णय हो तो वह वाद कथा पर्यवसायिनी होगी। और इसीलिए व्यक्तिगत रूप से मैं खंडन खंड खाद्य को भी वैतंडिक नहीं मानता हूँ। सामान्यतः यह प्रचलन है, आचार्य जी ने भी उल्लेख किया कि खंडन खंड खाद्य वितंडा का ग्रंथ है। अवश्य वितंडा के सारे उदाहरण उसमें मिलते हैं, किंतु उसका मुख्य लक्ष्य अद्वैत सिद्धि है। इसीलिए वो बहुत उदारता से कहते हैं कि हम ये खंडन युक्तियां दे रहे हैं, इसका उपयोग आप हमारे युक्तियों के खंडन में भी कर सकते हो। अभीष्ट सिद्धावपि खंडनानाम अखंड राज्ञामिव नैव माज्ञा तत्तानि कस्मान्न यथावदेव सैद्धांतिकेप्यध्वनि योजयध्वम्। इसलिए तत्व निर्णयोद्देशेन कृता वितंडा अपि वादे अंतर्भवति। यह हमारा अपना मंतव्य होता है। दूसरी बात एक और, जब हम कथा आरंभ करते हैं तो तभी दो व्यक्तियों का, कम से कम दो व्यक्ति, नाना वक्तृका कथा होनी चाहिए। जिस समय एक ही व्यक्ति है, जैसे तो ब्रह्म जिज्ञासा यह सूत्र किया, उस समय तक दूसरा व्यक्ति नहीं था, यहाँ कथा नहीं हो रही है। जैसे ही हमने अथ शब्द की चिंता शुरू कर दी, अथ शब्दः अनंतर्ये वर्तते वा मंगलार्थकः वर्तते वा, ये कथा शुरू हो गई, क्योंकि दो पक्ष आ गए। नाना वक्तृक होने से, आचार्य जी ने भी अभी उल्लेख किया था कि कभी कभी वक्ता दो नहीं होते हैं, लेकिन एक ही वक्ता दो वक्ता का अभिनय करता है। न च वाच्यम केचित्तु अन्येतु के रूप में स्वयं मतों का, मतांतर की स्वयं आशंकाओं का उपस्थापन करता है। उस स्थिति को भी हम नाना वक्तृक कह सकते हैं। इसलिए जब जैसे ही हम दो पक्ष आ जाते हैं, वो कथा का आरंभ हो जाता है। और वह दो पक्ष, आज हमारे आचार्य भावमोपाध्याय राजेश शास्त्री द्रविड़ कहते हैं कि कथकौ मतलब कथा करने वाले लोग, विद्यातः संभावित साम्यौ स्याताम्। जिन दो व्यक्तियों के बीच में परस्पर संवाद या चर्चा हो रही है, वो विद्या से संभावित साम्य वाले होने चाहिए। संभावित साम्य, पूर्णतया साम्य का निर्णय होना संभव नहीं है, लेकिन कम से कम बराबरी होनी चाहिए। संभावित साम्य विद्यातः होना चाहिए, अन्यथा कथा का प्रयोजन क्या है? एक पक्ष तक, निर्णय तक पहुंचना। अगर संभावित साम्य नहीं है तो विशेष विज्ञान प्रयोजनायाः कथायाः अनर्थक्य प्रसंगात्, विशेष विज्ञान जो कथा का प्रयोजन है वो पूर्ण नहीं हो पाएगा, क्योंकि वादमंतरेण विशेष प्रतिपत्ति है। दो समबल नहीं होंगे, दो समान बलशाली पक्ष प्रतिपक्षी नहीं होंगे, तो बिना वाद के ही कथा पूर्ण हो जाएगी और वह विज्ञान विशेष की प्राप्ति नहीं हो सकेगी। इसलिए संभावित साम्यौ स्याताम्। आपने शास्त्रार्थ शब्द का भी प्रयोग किया। शास्त्रार्थ शब्द अपने दयानंद सरस्वती जी के से आरंभ जैसा बताया। जिस शास्त्रार्थ शब्द का प्रचलन इस समय है, पक्ष प्रतिपक्ष, तो हो सकता है कि वो दयानंद सरस्वती से आरंभ हो, लेकिन इसका एक और अर्थ में प्रयोग होता है, अयमत्र शास्त्रार्थः। ऐसा बहुत से शास्त्र ग्रंथों में आता है। उसका अर्थ होता है कि यह सिद्धांत है। शास्त्रार्थ अर्थात सिद्धांत, वाक्य, अयमत्र वाक्यार्थ, अयमत्र शास्त्रार्थ, अयमत्र प्रगट्ठकार्थ। ऐसे अनेक छोटे छोटे वाक्य हमको दिखाई पड़ते हैं। इस प्रकार के जो चर्चाएं हैं, और भारतीय वाङ्मय में यह इस चर्चा से भारतीय वाङ्मय भरा हुआ है। कुछ तो ऐसे चर्चाएं, कुछ ऐसे संवाद हुए हैं, कुछ ऐसे डायलॉग, डिबेट हुए हैं जो इतिहास बन गए। एक विषय, एक तत्व को लेकर लगभग 700-800 वर्षों तक चर्चा चली है दो पक्षों के बीच में। मैं द्वैत अद्वैत चर्चा का उल्लेख करना चाहता हूँ। न्यायामृत, व्यास तीर्थ द्वारा रचित न्यायामृत ग्रंथ, जो कि प्राय 15वीं शताब्दी में लिखा गया है, और उस ग्रंथ में पूर्व अद्वैत के पूर्व आचार्यों के मतों का निराश किया गया है। उसके बाद अद्वैत सिद्धि मधुसूदन सरस्वती ने उस ग्रंथ के द्वारा अद्वैत का निराकरण का जो प्रकल्प किया गया था, उसके समर्थन में, अद्वैत मत के समर्थन में अद्वैत सिद्धि नामक ग्रंथ का रचना की। फिर उसके खंडन में तरंगिणी आई, उसके खंडन में हमारा गौड़ ब्रह्मानंद। इस तरह से खंडन मंडन की प्रक्रिया लगभग 700-750 वर्षों तक चली, और वह उन दो ग्रंथों पर आधारित चर्चा आज भी कर्नाटक के, बेंगलोर के और उडुपी और बेंगलोर के नगरों में अभी भी चल रही है, जहां पर पूरे प्रेम भाव से, पूरे सौहार्द के साथ द्वैताद्वैत विमर्श हो रहा है। एक बहुत बड़ा वाङ्मय द्वैताद्वैत विमर्श का न्यायामृत और द्वैत सिद्धि के द्वारा दिया गया। उसी तरह से कुणिगल राम शास्त्री, मैसूर के कुणिगल राम शास्त्री, जो श्रृंगेरी शंकर मठ के अनुयायी थे, उन्होंने सत्प्रतिपक्ष के एक विभाजक लक्षण पर 100 युक्तियां दी, और उसको शतकोटि नाम की, शतप्रतिपक्ष शतकोटि नाम का एक ग्रंथ तैयार हुआ, और उसका फिर श्री वैष्णव आचार्यों ने खंडन किया। उसके समर्थन में उनके शिष्यों प्रशिष्यों द्वारा शतकोटि कुल्या, शतकोटि नौका, ऐसा लगभग आज भी बहुत से ग्रंथ अभी भी अप्राप्य हैं, लेकिन मुझे ज्ञात है कि पांडुलिपि के रूप में श्री वैष्णव मठों में और विभिन्न पुस्तकालयों में वह उपलब्ध हैं, जहां पर शतकोटि के खंडन और मंडन की प्रक्रिया अभी भी चली थी। वह भी लगभग 300 वर्षों तक चला। एक लंबे समय तक चलने वाली यह शास्त्रार्थ प्रक्रिया। तो इस तरह के बहुत से उदाहरणों से हमारा यह संस्कृत शास्त्र वाङ्मय भरा हुआ है, जिसमें वाद के और चर्चा के बहुत से अवसर हैं। पूरे सौहार्दपूर्ण रीति से वाद किया हुआ अवसर है। आपने अभी एक अवच्छेदकत्व का उल्लेख किया था। अवच्छेदक और अवच्छिन्न। अवच्छिन्न शब्द शास्त्रों में दो अर्थों में प्रयोग, दो प्रकरणों में प्रयुक्त होता है। एक तो सामान्यतः आश्रय के रूप में अवच्छिन्न शब्द का प्रयोग होता है, जैसे घटत्व अवच्छिन्न घटः, अर्थात घटत्व का आश्रय, वो घेरता नहीं, लिमिट नहीं बनाता है, वो आवरक नहीं है, केवल घट पर रहने वाला एक धर्म है। क्योंकि हम लोग ये जानते हैं कि किसी वस्तु में दो प्रकार के धर्म होते हैं, एक स्वाभाविक और एक आगंतुक धर्म। घट जिस दिन उत्पन्न हुआ उस दिन से ही उस पर घटत्व नामक एक धर्म, जो उसका स्वाभाविक धर्म है, वह उस पर विद्यमान हो गया। किंतु अब घट पर बहुत से धर्म आगंतुक होते हैं। गौ पर अनेक धर्म आगंतुक होते हैं। जैसे घटाभाव कहा तो घट पर एक प्रतियोगिता आ गई, घटवत भूधर्म कहा तो घट पर एक प्रकारता आ गई। अनेक प्रकार से धर्म आते हैं। अभी गौ का आपने लक्षण शासनादिवत्तम कहा, तो गौ पर तो एक स्वाभाविक धर्म गोत्व तो है, लेकिन जैसे ही हमने एक लक्षण बनाया तो गौ लक्ष्य हो गई, और उस पर लक्ष्यता नामक एक आगंतुक धर्म आ गया, जो लक्षण बनाने से पूर्व में नहीं था। गोत्व तो उसके पूर्व में भी था, लेकिन लक्ष्यता यह धर्म लक्षण बनाने के बाद आया, और उस लक्ष्यता का अवच्छेदक धर्म वही स्वाभाविक धर्म जो गोत्व है वो होगा। लक्ष्यता को नियंत्रित करेगा, क्योंकि लक्ष्यता एक पानी की तरह स्नेहशील, श्रवणशील, बहने वाली पदार्थ है, चंदन वाली पदार्थ है, जो कहीं भी जा सकती है। यह अवच्छेदक उसे नियंत्रित करता है। जिस तरह से हम लोग देखते हैं कि गाँव में हम लोग के घर बनते हैं, छत पर को पकाने के लिए उसमें पानी डालते हैं और उसे चारों ओर से घेर देते हैं मेढ़ से, कि पानी बाहर न जाए। वैसे ही यही काम अवच्छेदक करता है। गोत्व यह कहता है कि हम जहाँ रहते हैं उससे अतिरिक्त स्थान पर तुम मत जाओ, और उससे न्यून स्थान पर भी मत रहो। हम जितने स्थान पर हैं उतने पूरे पर्याप्त रहो, और उससे अधिक स्थान पर मत जाओ, न्यून स्थान पर मत रहना। न्यून स्थान पर रहोगे तो अव्याप्ति होगी, और अधिक स्थान पर रहोगे तो अतिव्याप्ति होगी, अगर उस स्थान पर एकदम न रहे तो असंभव होगा, जिसका आपने उल्लेख किया है। तो इस तरह से आपने अनेक विषयों को प्रस्थापित किया। आपने एक वाद विघ्नों का भी उल्लेख किया। यह शब्द मेरे लिए पूर्णतः अपरिचित है। रसविघ्न आदि तो सुने थे, वाद विघ्न शब्द अपरिचित था। इसे हम लोग निग्रह स्थान के रूप में जानते हैं। जैसे ही कोई निगृहित होता है, जैसे आपने प्रतिज्ञा हानि का उल्लेख किया था, हमने जो प्रतिज्ञा की आत्मा नित्य, और आत्मा नित्य करते करते शास्त्रार्थ होते होते ऐसा हमें लगने लगा कि अब हम पराजित हो जाएंगे, तो हम अपने प्रतिज्ञा को त्याग देते हैं। नहीं नहीं, मैं आत्मा नित्य है नोक्तम। ये प्रतिज्ञा हानि, प्रतिज्ञा संन्यास, प्रतिज्ञा विरोध, अर्थांतरम अपात, ऐसे 22 निग्रह स्थान बताए गए। वही निग्रह स्थान संभवतः वाद विघ्न के रूप में हो सकते हैं। और इष्टापत्ति आदि जो है वो तर्क के दोष बताए गए हैं। इष्टापत्ति और आपाद्य आपद का की व्याप्ति न होना, ये सब तर्क के दोष बताए गए हैं। और माध्व दर्शन में इसका विशेष उल्लेख है। यदि कोई वक्तव्य इसमें माध्व दर्शन के विद्वान द्वारा किया जाना हो या रिमार्क्स दिया जाना हो, तो निश्चित रूप से वे इन तर्क दूषणों के बारे में थोड़ा बताएंगे। मुझे लगता है मैंने अपना निर्धारित समय पूर्ण कर लिया है, और भी कुछ बातें जो हम लोग बीच बीच में चर्चा करते रहेंगे। अवच्छेदक के संबंध में बहुत सी बातें हैं। अव्याप्ति, अतिव्याप्ति, असंभव के संबंध में भी बहुत से विषय जानने योग्य हैं। कभी अवसरांतर पर हम चर्चा करेंगे। आपने इस गौरवपूर्ण अवसर पर मुझे यह अवसर प्रदान किया, इसलिए मैं आप सबका धन्यवाद करता हूं। और जो कुछ त्रुटि हुई होगी वक्तव्य में, उसे आपका संशोधन के साथ आमंत्रित करता हूं। नमस्कार।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। And thank you very much for kindly substantiating my remarks with your valuable inputs. Professor Shukla ji has talked of 7 terms related to Vāda. Out of these, Purovad and Anuvad, they are out of the purview of Vāda. Remaining 5 terms he has discussed in detail, like Pravada, Prativada, and the whole concept of Vipratipatti and Prativachan he has dealt with extensively. And a very important concept given by Vachaspati Mishra about Vādādhikari, who are the persons authorized to carry out Vāda. So that is also is to be discussed here. And he has dealt with the significance of Vitanda. So it is not merely a refutation or deconstruction. It is actually done with the purpose of Tattva Bhuvutsa, that is understood. And thank you for drawing our attention to an important text like Nyāyamrit of Vyasa Tirtha. I know that a great tradition of debate running for almost a millennium continued between the Madhvaites and Advaitites, and it was a living tradition, very interesting contribution, important contribution by the great philosophers in the field of Vāda. So these have been very much valuable inputs by Professor Shukla ji. अब प्रवीण जी, वो कोई लीना सखरवाल का प्रश्न आप पढ़ दीजिए। थोड़ा सा आया था, मैं नहीं देख पाया, और वो मुझे नहीं अब मिल रहा है क्या है। और थैंक यू वेरी मच प्रोफेसर शुक्ला जी। नमो नमः, भूयो भूयो धन्यवादाः। इदानीं कयाचित् विदुष्या प्रश्नः उत्थापितः, सः यदि प्राप्यते तर्हि एकेन निमेषेण विचारं कुर्मः, अन्यथा तु द्वितीयं सत्रम् आरभ्येत। पंड्या जी, आप देख लीजिए। हाँ,
नमस्कार सर, could you please tell us about internal and external Vāda?
I think we will discuss it in the 3rd lecture. Internal Vāda and external Vāda. Shukla ji has also told us that any author writing a text, as I also told you, that there is a debate or dialogue going within him. कुछ भी अगर हम बात भी करते हैं तो हम पहले हमारे भीतर विचार होता है कि क्या करना चाहिए, मैं ये कहूँ कि ये कहूँ। और क्या कहना, ये कहना उचित होगा कि यह कहना उचित होगा. So any poet, any author writing a poem or a scientific text first has to enter into a kind of dialogue with himself. As Shukla ji said that he bifurcates himself into two interlocutors and उस अपने आत्म को दो में विभाजित कर लेता है. और ऐसा हमारे सबके साथ होता है. कुछ लोग अनुभव करते हैं, कुछ अनुभव नहीं करते हैं. मैं तो बहुत अनुभव करता हूँ. मेरे भीतर तो एक नहीं, करीब 150 लोग डिबेट करते रहते हैं. तो ये जो डायलॉग्स एंड डिबेट्स गोइंग इनसाइड ए मैन, इनसाइड एन ऑथर, इनसाइड ए शास्त्रकारा, दे आर वेरी मच इंपॉर्टेंट. क्योंकि ये सब एज वी सेड इन द बिगिनिंग, इट इज ऑल द मैनिफेस्टेशन ऑफ परावाक. वो परावाक का ही ये सारा कॉस्मोस विवर्त है. तो सारा जो वादक प्रपंच है वो तो हमारे भीतर चलता है, वही बाहर हमको होता है. जो भीतर है वही बाहर है. तो जो इनसाइड डिबेट है वह बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. उस पर वी विल डिस्कस इट इन द थर्ड लेक्चर आल्सो, एंड इन द सेवंथ लेक्चर ऑन संवादा आल्सो वी विल अगेन कम टू डिस्कस इट. And the debates external, Vāda external, that is very much very well known. Whatever we are discussing between us, that is Vāda or Samvada going on at the external level on some platform. It may be a virtual platform, it may be through text, or it may be in cinema or in any drama. Whatever we see in the outer world as reality and happens as Vāda, that is external. Apparently, this is what I can say. And Professor Rajaram Shukla ji, if he finds some very shastric definition about this Antasamvada and Bahisamvada, Antarvada and Bahirvada, he can come back to us on I think on second day also, tomorrow also. So with this we finish the first